Hey, loves, happy Tuesday. Hope you all had a great day today. I'm always excited to see you. And I know we usually show up on Wednesdays, but today it's Tuesday evening, and I'm super excited to be here with you. Hope you're having a great week. Your week has started on a positive note. I can't believe that summer's over and we are into fall. And I'm actually enjoying the crisp weather, believe it or not. Just the air feels super crisp and I'm enjoying it. And as always, I'm so grateful that you are here with me because I know there are so many other places that you can be. And as always, welcome. And I always enjoy our shows being interactive. So if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat for my guest and I. And today I have an incredible guest that means so much to me. And I'm going to get started. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Real Talk, where I get to have real life, raw conversations with incredible people from my circles and communities who overcome challenge and create amazing. They inspire me every single time. And today, my guest is the incredible Greg Baldwin. Greg is a comedian, renowned actor, producer, and host of the Second Chances podcast. Greg has performed regularly at the Comedy Store, improv comedy clubs, and countless other venues, performing in shows with many top comedians, including Bill Burr, Kevin Nealon, Bob Saget, Jay Mohr, and countless others. He currently tours and features for comedy legend Darrell Hammond of Saturday Night Live. He has also achieved critical acclaim as the host of the inspirational podcast Second Chances, on which he brings out the best in his guests as they share their life stories. Always authentic, always informed, and always present. His humble strength guides his guests through a journey of revelation and honesty like no other. Greg has also found deserved success as an actor and honed his craft as a dedicated student of the greats, including the renowned Howard Fine, Kirk Baltz, and Gene Shelton. He gained invaluable experience studying at the legendary The Groundings and Upright Citizens Brigade. Greg quickly became in demand and has acted in multiple films and prestigious commercials for Sony, Chrysler, Volkswagen, and Doritos. Greg knows a thing or two about second chances. He is a man whose core foundation is derived from his own deep personal story. He has worked tirelessly with his faith, intellect, and commitment to create an amazing new career for himself. Please help me welcome my dear friend Greg Baldwin to the show today. Welcome.
Hi, Grace. That was quite the intro.
Well,
Uh,
that's all you. And thank you so much for your patience. I had a tech difficulty, but you know what? You just show up and show out, and it's all good.
no, it's awesome. It's awesome to see you. I think we talked about this before, but I feel a very special connection with you because we bonded somewhere in our schooling. I forget which
Yes.
where it was, if we had a class together, but I always felt like a special connection with you.
I
Uh,
feel the same way. Thank you. And for those who don't know, Greg and I go way back to high school. So you're talking decades. We've known each other for decades. And it's just been incredible to witness his journey. I know you're on the podcast 2 years ago, and I've been following you the last 2 years. And I'm just blown away by how you've expanded the last 2 years. And that's why I'm like, hey, do you want to come back on? Like, I want to talk about this expansion.
yeah, no, it's fun. I'm having a great. I mean, my dream is to have a job in a career that I would do for free,
Mm.
and so that's been my aspirations. And I walked away from I made a lot of sacrifices, and I walked away from a lot of stability. I walked away from a good career. I walked
Mm.
away, from the 401k and the working 9 to 5, and I took a chance on myself, and it's been a struggle, but the things I'm doing now, I mean, it's insane. It's so cool that I get to perform with people that I grew up watching on TV, and it's just really, really exciting. But last Tuesday, on September 12th, a couple Tuesdays ago, was my 10-year anniversary of doing
Yes.
stand-up, which was pretty
Congratulations.
cool. Yeah.
Congratulations. That's amazing. And I'm grateful for you talking about, the struggle because I work with so many individuals who are in the 9 to 5 and they have this dream and they're so afraid to take the risk because, like you said, they're walking away from stability, the 401k, the consistent paycheck. So can you, speak on that about, going after your dream and taking the risk?
Yeah, it's a lot of times, so working as a comedian is not, it's a bad career move financially. Because in LA, people don't realize, it's like I'll do these shows, I'll do a show with Bill Burr and not even get paid. And or Bob Saget passed, but I perform with all these big people, and they're like, wow, he's killing it. But it's it doesn't pay a lot in Los Angeles, and so financially it's a difficult struggle. And the other thing about the process of being a stand-up is, in order to become a good stand-up, you have to suck for a long time. You have to be terrible. And what that means is that you have to go out and perform in front of friends and family when you're not good, and be judged as not being good. And it's like, I did a show in 2017. I don't know if you went to that one, but
I was there.
That in 2017. So now,
was it at Cobb's Comedy in the City?
It was at Punchline.
Yes, I remember that you came in, and a bunch of us came to see you.
Okay, so I don't know, was it in the past couple of years, or was it like 5 years ago?
It was a while ago.
Yeah.
Okay. It was over 5 years ago.
And you don't have to,
I don't remember. I just remember we were there. We were just happy to see you on the stage.
I know. So that's the thing, and I wasn't a very good comedian at the time. I'd been doing it for 4 years. And 4 or 5 years, and I wasn't a good comedian. So all those friends, I sold it out as like 170 people. And all those people that saw me probably went away going, wow, that was amazing. That was so fun. We got to see everybody, but he's not very good. So that being able to,
that's tough.
withstand, and it's like, I'll go do a show, I've done the Punchline a bunch of times now. And I can tell, like, when I don't do well, and they're like, people don't flock and talk to me, you know what I mean? Or they're not like, oh my God, that was so good, you are so funny. And they don't say any of those things, and they're like, wow, congratulations, you're really going for it, that kind of stuff. And then you go home and you're like, fuck, man, like, why am I doing this? It's just so brutal. And it's that self-doubt and that pain. But then every once in a while, you have these moments of it's like hitting a game-winning home run in the bottom of the ninth of the World Series, and it's the greatest thing ever. And you get these little flashes of incredibleness, it's just the best. And so that keeps you going. But I just have so much respect for people that have, that do stand up more than 2, 3, 4 years, because it's so brutal. It's so hard.
So now do that. Like, how did you get through? Because I've listened to you with Jimmy on a few podcasts, and you talk about that doubt. How do you get over that? Because it's rough. I've had to really work hard to get to a place where that judgment doesn't just take me down. Like, and that's what you're on stage in front of all of these people. You feel like you sucked.
Yeah.
Well, how do you get through that?
You just it used to cripple me. And I bombed in front of my parents one time, and for months I would have severe anxiety before I performed, and I would take a nap before I should and do a night show, and then I'd wake up going, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, I have to go perform. I don't want to do this. And people would say, do you love stand-up? And I would think to myself, like, no, I hate it. Like, I really hate it. There's just these moments of incredibleness, and I just pushed through it. Now it's the greatest thing ever. Most of the time, 90% of the time, I do good work now, and I'm funny, and people.
You're amazing.
I can tell I'm funny because people I don't know come up to me and ask me for pictures or tell me I was funny. That's when And then my first mentor was a guy named Ant, and he was a judge on The Last Comic Standing. He said, you're starting to make it when people you don't know come to see you perform. And I'm starting to get some of that. And And now I'm starting to have good material, and I'm learning how to edit and stuff. But every once in a while, it's like I just did a show. I produced a show. It's a SNL alumni show, and the week before I did a show at this place called the Ice House, and I just killed. I mean, it was unbelievable. Huge ovation. It was just incredible. And so I'm thinking I'm going to go kill in this SNL alumni show. And it was with, some heavyweights. It was with Chris Kattan and Jay Farrow, who's fantastic, and Darrell Hammond, who is 14 years. He's a current announcer, and he played Clinton. And I toured with him. And then a guy named Jay Mohr, who's really famous. And I hosted it. I produced the show and I hosted it. So I'm like, I'm going to kill and this and that, but I did not kill.
How do you know you did not kill?
Because you just know the crowd goes nuts, huge laughter. I was getting applause and laughs, but it was not what I did the week before. So I had these false expectations that I was going to destroy. But, someone told me, Jay Mohr told me after, he's like, dude, it was an SNL show. They're there to see SNL people. And you're just a host. You're not in the host spot's not a kill spot. But what happened, I was devastated, because I had these false expectations that I was going to kill. So I did another SNL show. The next one, I said, okay, you know what? I'm a host, and my job is to warm it up for these guys that everybody's there to see. And I meditated before, and I had a great set, and it was fine. I didn't kill, like massacre, but I was okay with it. So it's just these incredibly high highs and these incredibly low lows, and you're constantly putting yourself in really dangerous situations and uncomfortable situations, and what happens over time is you learn how to be okay with the silence, and you grow.
What is the silence? What do you mean by the silence?
You tell a joke and they normally laugh and they don't laugh.
Got it.
And so you learn little tricks. So
what's one of the tricks?
So one of the tricks, I don't do this anymore. I used to, but I had a little notepad, or like I'd look on my phone and I'd be like, oh my God, I think I screwed this joke up. Let me check my notes. And then I'd go, I'm funny. Don't care what people think about me. Believe in yourself. And then people would laugh at that. Sometimes the best joke is when you joke about the joke not working. And then another one when I'd be like, oh my God, that's weird. That one killed at the office today.
And so, but like you said earlier, you had the same routine, right? And you killed it. And then the next night or the next week, is that, normal? It's like one week it could kill it somewhere, and another week does it depend on the audience? Does it depend on your energy?
Everything. And sometimes you say something a little different, and and I learned a valuable lesson. I was watching a comedian. He's kind of in timeout. He's coming back now. His name's Louis C.K.
And Mike's had me watch Louis C.K. a few times.
He's brilliant. He got a little trouble for some stuff he did. But he's doing shows again. But he, regardless of the other stuff, he is one of the greatest joke writers ever, and he's one of the best comedians ever. And I watched him. I was doing a show at the Comedy Store, and I was in one room, and I went up, I did my set, and someone's like, hey, Louis C.K.'s in the original room, in the other room. So I go watch his set, right? And he just destroyed. Like, it was insane. The crowd was going insane, right? And then he went over to the room I was in, and he performed again, and he did the same material, same delivery, same everything, and was not getting any laughs.
Interesting.
And I was like, I learned a lesson. I'm like, wow. And sometimes you just can't figure it out. And then every time my ego starts getting big, I'm like, oh, I got this. I'm a great comedian. And, something happens to humble me. I'll have a tough set. And it's, so the highs are really, really high, like incredibly high. And the lows are extremely, extremely low. Where
that does sound brutal. I mean, how do you move through those low? Like, how do you get through those low lows?
It doesn't. So it used to cripple me for weeks, a month or something when I bombed. Bombing meaning I've always gotten laughs, but not,
the way you want.
Yeah. And, but now if I don't have a great set, usually affects me for a day or two. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I just brush it off. And sometimes if I'm spiritually fit and I'm in a good place, I'm just like, I don't even care. I'll plow right through it, and I don't even care. I'm like, I'll call the crowd out on it, and I'm just on fire. And usually then I have a good set because I'm in that mindset, but it's like life,
Right. And I love that word, spiritually fit, because, that's what I work towards, because I know when I'm spiritually fit, when I have those failures, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to move through it. I learned. But, there's times when I'm not spiritually fit, or I'm in my ego, or I'm feeling, you know, I'm going for outside validation, and that happens. It knocks me off.
Yeah. And one of the things that I got to remember too, it's like, I'm not there to get, when
Mm,
I go and perform, it's not about me receiving, it's about me giving. And
yes.
so my job is to make people laugh and help forget their days and bring joy and laughter. That's my job. My job isn't to receive all the adoration and laughter so I feel good. My job is to make them feel good. And so when I'm in that mindset, my job is, it's a service job. My job is to bring joy and happiness to people. And so when I'm connected with a crowd
Mm.
and I'm living my purpose, and then I'm at my best. When I
Amen.
when I'm not connected and I have expectations and I'm not connected to the crowd, I'll get off the stage and I won't recognize a single person that was in the crowd. When I'm super connected, I can recognize tons of people and that I had seen and connected with and made eye contact with, and I saw laughing. And there's another thing, a trick that I've learned over time, where I used to perform. If there was a table and nobody's laughing and everybody's else laughing, I would focus on the table that wasn't laughing and try to get them to laugh, and they wouldn't laugh. And then I would think I had a terrible set. And so, and then people would be like, dude, you did great, and then now I ignore the table that's not laughing. And sometimes people just aren't laughers, they might be enjoying it, but I focus in on the positive, and,
Yes.
and,
Yes.
I love it so much
I love
now.
that.
Yeah, but it's hard. It's just
And
hard.
and I can imagine. I mean, when you talk about the high highs and the low lows, and I make an effort to be as neutral, as possible as I move through life, and it's challenging. And
Mhm.
then I can't imagine, the high highs and the low, because I want to stay in the high highs.
Me
I
too.
love that dopamine hit.
Yeah, that's
And I've been trying, I've been finding new ways in life to get that dopamine hit. And for me, I get the dopamine hit from connecting, like how we're doing now, from feeling fulfilled. And
yeah.
I burnt out last year, and my coach was like, "Okay, Grace, it's about service." I'm like, "Well, you know what? I'm tired of hearing about service. I serve all," I was kind of in that, crybaby mode. However, that's exactly what it's about. It's about being of service. This is not about me.
Mhm.
It's about how can I give back. So I love how you said that. Like, it's not about me and my expectations, about how am I serving, and I'm here to make you laugh, and that's my intention.
Yeah,
And it sounds like when you release, that expectation, you just feel connected, and you walk off feeling great.
yeah.
I
I'm
know
reading
easier said than done. I mean,
I'm reading this, I don't know if people are just seeing me for the first time. I have a pretty I have a history of addiction, and I've been clean and sober
amazing
16
story.
and a half years. I was a meth addict. I got down to, 118 pounds, missing teeth. And so I'm living a second chance in life. And part of the obligation of getting a second chance in life, I mean, I was literally dying, 118 pounds. And part of the obligation now, getting a second chance in life, is I cannot live a selfish life anymore. And I have to live a life of service. And so when I'm living in self, and I'm sitting around thinking about myself and my career, what I'm going to get, how am I going to get this, and what can I do to get that? I'm miserable, And I'm reading this book. It's called Buddha's Brain,
Mm.
and and it talks. Right now, I'm on the chapter about so many valuable lessons in this book, but right now it's about the self. And it said, I read last night, one of the exercises is try to have conversations without saying I, me, and talking about myself. And that's hard,
I
you
hear
know,
you.
that's hard
I
to
just
do.
said, I hear you.
Yeah. Because I want to, I want everybody to like me, and I want everybody to know how well I'm doing. And then there was another thing I read in this book too. It's like, I'm trying to, so I have a negative thinking mind. And
We
so,
all do.
yeah, and you're talking, you're talking about the dopamine hits. I want to be hit the game-winning home run to the bottom of the ninth of the World Series every second of every day, and that's not life.
No, it's not. It's not.
And so I'm learning different ways. And so what'll happen for me is like all these good things will happen, and I wake up one day and it's like my career's over. I'm never going to amount to anything. all these negative things that my mind's telling. I mean, I'm just miserable, and I'm trying. And what happens? There's actually connections in your brain that are happening. When you have these different thoughts, and when you're positive. And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure out, how do I become more positive in my thinking? And there's different things. Meditation is a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Meditation is really big. Exercise, all the normal things, service work,
Mm-hmm.
helping people. And then there was one that another thing that I thought was really interesting, and it's, the view of us, right?
Tell me
If
more.
if I'm thinking of us as the whole world, we're all on the same team, right? Then I'm usually pretty happy when I'm like trying to help and be a service,
Mm-hmm.
and we're all on the same team. When the us is just me, and I'm the us, and I'm all I think about, and I'm just my universe, and I'm not concerned with other people, and I'm the us, then I'm usually very miserable. So,
Mm-hmm.
um,
The ego. I've learned to embrace the ego.
yeah,
Something that's helped me, our mind is naturally goes to the negative. That's the way we're wired for
yeah,
survival.
you're right.
And I've been working on this, for quite some time. And something that's helped me is, I listen to shout out to Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Mhm.
Dr. Joe Dispenza, he talks about like rewiring the neurological pathways,
Yeah,
and it works. Where I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago is very different than where I am today. Now, of course, I still have those thoughts, but it's very different than it was. But it's something that I've committed to and I practice. And the affirmations, I know some people don't believe in affirmations, but just that constant, our negative thinking is a habit. And so I've learned that I could, shift it. It's not easy,
yeah,
but we can, it's just a habit. And just like you said, meditation, the exercise, and I feel the gratitude's huge. I practice
yeah.
gratitude,
Me too. I do a gratitude list almost every morning.
right? And then
Hmm.
I just like being in that vibration and that energy. It's dopamine, so much more. And of course, like you said, it's not life. All of our emotions serve us.
Hmm.
It's just I enjoy, and maybe sometimes I intellectualize things to the positive too quickly. Maybe I need to sit into what I'm feeling longer.
Yeah,
However, the things that I attract when I'm feeling better, when I'm in gratitude, it's amazing. Which brings me to 2 years ago, we were on the show, and then I've witnessed you over the last 2 years, just your
mhm,
careers exploded. Did
mhm.
you have to have a shift in your mindset to get from where you were 2 years ago to today?
I don't know if I had a shift in my mindset. I think, so what's changed in the past 2 years, I was touring, I wasn't really touring a couple years ago, I don't think. Maybe I was just starting to tour, but
I
um,
remember you were you've been, you
I
were
had been touring.
coming out for shows. I mean, I saw you with Darrell Hammond, right?
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. So I had been touring already.
Mhm.
So the change now is I started producing shows at the Hollywood Improv, which is one of the most famous comedy clubs. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if it's a change in mindset. I think it's just, I just constantly try to help these guys.
Mm.
With Darrell, I do a lot for him. Darrell Hammond, from SNL, and he takes me on tour all over the place. And then Jay Mohr, I started touring with. Jay Mohr was on. He played Bob Sugar on Jerry Maguire. So
I saw you with I think I saw you with Jay Moore
yeah,
the last time I saw you.
yep, yep, yep. So I did the punchline with Jay Mohr,
Yes.
and that's when you came. You came with.
Raf, Abdul, the whole team, like
Oh yeah, okay, okay.
Omar, Jenna, we were all there.
Oh yeah, that's right. And but I think I just try to be a service, and stop
Mm.
trying to figure out what I can get for myself. And I just try to help these guys. Yeah, I don't tour that much with Jay, although I am going to tour with Jay and Darrell at the same time
That's
coming
amazing.
up. I'll tell you a cool story. So I'm doing this show. It's an impression show. So Darrell and I were in San Diego, and you're a couple years ago, and we were doing the Laugh Factory, and we're going. Darrell was going to do a radio interview, so I turned on the radio. We were driving to the station in San Diego to listen, and I turned on the morning show, and Jay Mohr was on the show right before us. So I texted Jay. I'm like, Jay, don't take off. Darrell and I are coming into the station. So he waits for us. We get in there. We're like, oh man, what's up? So Darrell does his interview. We agree. We're going to go out to breakfast. And so we go out to breakfast, and I'm sitting. It's with me, Darrell Hammond, and Jay Mohr, and one of Jay's friends. We're sitting at breakfast, and they start talking. Jay was on SNL too. They start doing impressions back and forth, right? And talking about Saturday Night Live and being on the show, and they start doing these impressions back and forth. Darrell's one of the most preeminent impressionists of all times, and Jay is very good too. And so he's incredible, like phenomenal, but he's not as known for the impressions. But they start, and I'm like, this is insane, right? This is so cool.
Oh my God.
And I listen to all this SNL backstage, and anyway, and Jay says to Darrell, we should do a show together.
That's how you got the idea for the show from breakfast?
Yeah. So I'm producing two shows. I have 2 shows, 2 different ones. But so Darrell's like, yes. So I put together a lunch and with the 3 of us, and we sit down, and Jay's like, okay, this is what we'll do. Greg will moderate it. And let's get all the impressions, Greg. So I started getting all their impressions. They have like 25 each, 25, 30 each. I got them all on paper. And so we go and do the show, and it's we've done like 10 or so shows, maybe 15. But what happens now, so we've kind of perfected it or advanced it. So I do 10 minutes, I host, and then just stand up. Darrell does 20 minutes of stand up. Jay does 20 minutes of stand up. Then all 3 of us come to stage on together.
Wow. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, and then I'm moderate it, and then I just go back and forth with their impressions. And
what do you mean you go back and forth with their impressions?
So Darrell does Clinton. So I'll say to Darrell, I said, Darrell, you've performed for 5 presidents. You met Bill Clinton in the Oval Office. What was that experience like? And then that will lead him into his impression. And then I'll say to Jay Mohr, I'll say, Jay, you worked with Academy Award winner, what's his name? God damn it, Cowbell. On SNL. What's his name?
Oh yes, Chris Walken.
Christopher Walken. Yeah. I said you worked with Christopher Walken and the Academy Award winner in Suicide Kings. What was that experience like? And then it leads into his thing. But then at the end, so we go through all their impressions: Pacino, De Niro, Sean Connery, and then I'm just going back and forth with them. So I moderate it, and then at the end I do a speed round, and I'll say like Don Knotts, Barney Fife to Darrell, and then I'll say Kermit the Frog to Jay, and we just go back and forth, and the show is phenomenal.
I can't wait to see it.
It's so good. So we toured it in Jersey and Philly, and we just now I created this cool video of all their impressions and to promote the show, and so we're going to start touring it next year.
That's amazing. Congratulations. That's amazing. And that's what I mean, just so much you've created so much, and it sounds like, because I've asked you a few different ways, like, was it your mindset? What have you shifted? And you keep going back to service. You're not focusing on yourself. It's about service and just giving back. And so would you say when we just focus on service and giving back in that way, things, do they just fall into place? Like, did you have a vision? Did you have a desire? Did you visualize what you wanted? Or is this just kind of happening?
So, I'll tell you how it all started. I used to go to the Comedy Store. I was an actor. I was a theater actor in San Francisco before I got sober, and doing voiceovers and stuff like that. I moved to LA. I got sober in 2007, and I wanted to be an actor. That was my dream, and I was doing improv and all this stuff. And I used to go to the Comedy Store, one of the most famous comedy clubs in the United States, by myself.
Oh wow!
And I would just watch comedians by myself. It never crossed my mind to do stand-up.
Really?
Never crossed my mind. I never thought I could be funny. I never thought I was a good writer. Never crossed my mind. So in part of my recovery is I speak in jails in LA, and I've spoken, probably over 300 times to inmates, and I have some drug stories that make people laugh and stuff. But anyway, I was at a recovery meeting one night, and this guy, my friend Glenn, introduced me to this newcomer. He was new into recovery. He had like 30 days clean. And then he says to me, he goes, "Hey, will you give him a ride home after the meeting?" And here's what I thought to myself. I'm like, why don't you give him a ride home? Like, why are you asking me? You got a car. But listen, I say yes to life now, and so I said yes. So I gave this newcomer a ride home, and I'm like, "Do you have a car?" And he's like, "No." And I'm like, "Do you need help getting to meetings?" And he's like, "Yeah." So I start picking him up. I start taking him to meetings, and I would go to Starbucks. He'd never order anything. I'm like, "Are you broke?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Do you have groceries?" And he's like, "No." And I'm like, "All right, I'll take you grocery shopping." And I'm like, "Where do you shop?" And I'll take you there. And this dude took me to Whole
I was
Foods.
gonna say, I remember I love this story. He said, "You're like, you took me to Whole Foods."
Yeah, he took me to Whole Foods and got like a little tiny basket for like $100. But anyway, I did my part, and it turns out he was a stand-up comedian, and he invited me to go to one of his shows. And it was a terrible show. Their comedians were horrible, and he was good, but everybody else sucked. And I said to him after, I'm like, "Dude, I could tell drug stories and be as funny as half of these guys." And he's like, "Do you want to try it?" And I'm like, "Okay." And because I say yes to life now, so he put me up a week later at the Comedy Store at a beginner show, and I told some drug stories, and then I wrapped it up with a recovery message, and I got high fives off the stage. And that was and the host comes back up and he's like, "Holy shit, man!" He goes, "I didn't know this was an AA meeting," and everybody started laughing. That was on September 12th of 2013. So I just hit 10 years, but I was doing a show about 3 years after that. I was doing a show at the Comedy Store, the most famous comedy club in the world. And I was backstage behind the curtain, the same curtain that Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, Jay Leno, Letterman, Robin Williams, all the greatest comedians of all time have walked through this curtain. And I'm hosting the show, and I'm talking to Bill Burr, who's one of the biggest comedians in the country right now. And I remember, and I was talking to him, and I'm about to take the stage and introduce Bill Burr, and I just thought to myself, like, how did this happen? Like,
Right?
how am I a stand-up comedian? Like, this is crazy. And I was just overwhelmed with just in awe that I was doing this you know you know how it happened?
He said yes to life.
Yeah, and I gave a newcomer a ride home.
You know what, Greg? I'm gonna get emotional. I tell that story so often, and I keep that story in my mind to remind me that you just don't know. And like you said, we get into our ego and we need to do this and take action and I want to grow this, and we forget about giving back. And so that story always reminds me, okay, Grace, take a step back. You
Mhm.
never know. Like, always stay kind, say yes. It's okay to help. It's okay to do all of these things because you never know who you're helping. You never know where it could take you.
Yeah. And when you're living in that mindset, you're happy, you know?
You are. And you know what I find? I don't know if this resonates with you. Like every morning I wake up and I said, you know what? Thank you, God, for giving me another day. And
Mm,
I'm open to the unimaginable surprises that you have in store for me.
that's great. My prayer sometimes is, God, please tell me where to go, tell me what to say and who to say it to. Please
That's
help me
it.
be of maximum service.
That's it.
Uh, and you know, listen, I'm not a religious person. I'm a spiritual person. I
Me
pray.
too.
I pray. I meditate 20 minutes twice a day. This is my, for anybody that's listening and you have a thing against organized religion or whatever your belief system. I just know for my personal self, I don't have any problems with any religions or anything like that. But for my personal self, I know there's something working in my life. I don't know what it is. I don't think it's a gray haired dude judging me for heaven or hell or something like that. But I don't know. But there's something. There's some reason I'm here. I'm here. Like I have to evolve as a human, and I have to learn these lessons, and I have to keep outgrowing older.
I lost you. Hey, hey. I lost you, my friend. Mm. That was some good nuggets. Oh my goodness. Well, we lost Greg. Hopefully we can get him back. Oh, maybe he'll come back. Just take a moment. Thank you for those of you that are on live with me. Hopefully we get him back. It's always fun to connect with him. He has great stories. His story is really incredible. Like he said, he went from just being a meth addict, 118 pounds, to now all, over 10 years later, just having a very successful, incredible career. And he's so inspiring. Hopefully we get him back. If not, I will definitely, put in the comments where you can see Greg, where you can find him, come see him. I know he comes into San Francisco often. Oh, he's back. There you are. I was
Uh,
just sharing like how amazing you are about, your how you went from, like you said, 118 pounds, meth
yeah,
addict to where you are today. So miracles happen all the time. Even though you're not religious, you believe that there's something out there.
I know there is, and because I've had like I've had several burning bush experiences where the
So tell
coincidence,
me more like about what do you mean burning bush experiences?
like spiritual awakenings or
Mhm.
moments of clarity. And, if I tell the stories, people think I'm crazy, but
No, I mean, if you're open, because again, I know you and I have talked like there is something greater than us. I believe in miracles. I believe anything is possible.
there's like if all the little coincidences, serendipity things that have happened, those like moments are like, whoa, that is impossible. That happened at this time. You know what I mean? Like if I put them all on paper, even before I got clean and sober, but especially since, because I'm more conscious and awake to them now. It's impossible for there not to be something working in my life. I'll tell you a crazy story, and your people will think I'm
Yes.
crazy, but
No, I love it. I want to hear it.
okay. So before I got sober, I was smoking meth, and I kept like catching the clock at like 4:20. Like all these 4:20s kept popping up, right?
Puff puff give. Just
Yeah,
kidding.
yeah, that's what I thought. And I'm like, here's what I thought. I'm like, oh shit, it's a message for me to quit smoking weed, right? And to only smoke weed, stop meth, and just smoke weed. That's what I thought it was for. This is like the 420 is like the international sign for pot, right?
Oh, for those that don't know.
But it was happening all the time before I got clean, and I was like, oh, it's like the universe is telling me to, just smoke pot. But anyway, I got clean, and I ended up going to rehab. I got clean, and I was in rehab, and I got out, and I had this one day. It was just I was going to use. I had a real bad day. I had an audition to get in the ground link school, which I heard is now I know it's not a big deal. You can just get in anyway, but you have to go audition. But I thought I missed my audition. I'm never going to be a ground link and this and that. And it was raining, and I ran right by it. I missed the audition, and then I went to the bus stop, and I was going to go to a recovery meeting, and I'm sitting at the bus stop. A car goes by, hits a puddle. All this water goes all over me. I'm sopping wet. And I'm like, God, why? And this girl came and she sat down. She's like, oh, and like the seat was really wet. So I just wiped it off with my shirt. And I'm like, she sat down and we started talking. And I'm like, she said she had done math a few times. I told her I just got clean. And I tried to convince her to get me math. I was going to relapse. And I had been clean for a couple months.
Mm.
I had lost everything. So I was busing. I was taking the bus. I had no driver license, no car. And she's like, no, I'm not going to get you math. And she goes, but you know what? I'll hang out with you after I get off work. So why don't you come meet me? And she worked at this place. And so I went to go meet her. And then she totally stood me up. And so I went home, and I was calling my ex-girlfriend, who actually introduced me to meth. And she had moved to LA. We used to do meth in San Francisco. She moved to LA. So I had this is back when there was payphones, 16 years ago. And I had like $10 worth of change, and she kept hanging. Every time she'd answer, she'd hang up on me.
The quarter, right?
Yeah, and I kept going through all my quarters, right? So I got down and like I had a couple quarters left, and I'm like, if she hangs up on me again, I mean, I was out of my mind. I said, I'm going to get high. And she answered the phone. She took my call. She agreed to meet with me. Right. This is a long-winded story, but
Now, were you in LA or San Francisco? You're in
LA.
LA. You said you're going to the grounding school. Okay.
Yeah, I was in LA. I was living in a sober living home. I had no car, and I was busing everywhere. And I used to be pretty successful.
Carnage.
Huh?
That's carnage and wreckage.
Yeah. So anyway, so I go meet my I was going to go to meet my ex-girlfriend. She doesn't show up. I wait for her for like 2 hours. She doesn't show up. And I'm like, it was like midnight. So I had to take the last bus home. Otherwise I was going to have to walk like 8 miles. So I get on the bus and I'm like, God, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't relapse. And I looked up at the little electronic signal on the bus and it was 4:20. So it was April 20th of 2013. It said 4:20. And I'm like, oh my God. Right. So fast forward, I was in sober living and my friend calls me and he's like, we're going to move out together. And he goes, hey, I think I found a place. Come meet me. And I said, okay, what's the address? 420 North Palm Drive. And so I ended up moving into 420. That was my address. And then one of my friends called me to get into rehab because he was having a tough time, and I had to get his insurance information. And I said, "What's your birthday?" And he said 420.
So what does it mean to you? Because I know like there's different numbers. So what does 420 mean to you?
And one more thing. So my first comedy mentor, who was a judge on The Last Comic Standing, his sobriety date was 420.
Wow.
So all these numbers, and then at weird times, I'll wake up in the middle of the night and just look at my phone and it'll say 420. And what that means to me, and what I've learned, is you're on the right path.
Amen.
So that's pretty out there, and people could say that doesn't believe in a higher power, God, that you just happen to look at the clock or you happen to move in there. It's just coincidences. But there's been so many of the 420s that it's like, okay, either I'm living in the matrix or something is pointing me in the right direction.
No, I love that. I go by the numbers too. I always, two, and if I'm talking to someone and I say it's 222, 1111. So I believe, and I take those as signs, and it's funny. Sometimes I'll be thinking about something or talking about something or having, needing to make a decision, and I see 1111, and then I'm like, okay, I'm on the right track. So I'm with you on this.
Yeah. There's another thing too.
All over.
There's another thing too. When I was smoking meth, I was in bad shape, and one day this thought came to me that I can't stop smoking meth because I can't get pleasure. Like nothing gives me pleasure, right? And so it was like a thought that thought came to me, and it wasn't even like my own thought. It was like a thought that was interjected to me. It's hard to explain. And the next morning I woke up and I'm like, that's it, man. That's why I can't get clean. Like I can't get pleasure. Like nothing will satisfy me without using drugs. And I got in my car, and I used to work for, radio stations, K Fox and KOME.
Yeah, I remember.
Live 105, but I used to record promos, and I voiced these promos, right? And I hadn't worked there for like a year, but I get in my car and I'm driving down the street, and I turn on one of my old stations, and my voice came on the radio for one of the promos that I had recorded previously, and I said, "Wouldn't it be great if K Fox played a bunch of songs that started with the letter S?" And the Rolling Stones, "I Can't Get No Satisfaction" came on. And I was like, whoa, like this thought came to me. Mm-hmm. And then that a promo I had previously recorded said, "I can't get no," and it was like a moment of clarity. And that I realized like I need help. And, a month or so after, I ended up going to rehab and get clean. But just the little things like that,
I'm all about those signs and being aware and gaining that clarity. And but again, I think we need to pay attention. And if, like you talked about meditation, do you find that those moments of clarity come to you, more often now that you are meditating, that you're taking the time to connect with, a higher power?
Yeah. So now these, like, I think those really bold burning bush experiences were like, hey, I'm showing you, like, this is your way, this and that. But now that I'm spiritually fit usually a lot, they're subtle. They're more subtle. And so what I'm trying to do is increase my awareness and my consciousness.
I love that.
And be more awake. But, what the things that I do can block me from that consciousness, the selfishness, the self-centeredness, the, doing, behavior that I shouldn't engage in, or like, I was playing poker all the time. That these things that will block me from being able to see clearly. And then what happens sometimes when I'm not spiritually fit and I'm not conscious is I'll make poor decisions. Mm-hmm. Or somebody will anger me and I'll react to them. and I'll say something, or I'll make a poor decision. And then what happens is I go through pain and I have to correct it. And so what I've learned to do now is I've learned to not react and to keep to myself. Sometimes I keep to myself and I'm really hard on myself, but I learn not to react so I don't cause those problems. Because usually when I get upset or I yell at somebody or something, I'm usually wrong, is what I've learned. You know,
Because
because I'm thinking, I'm in self,
mm,
and I'm not making, but when I'm meditating 20 minutes twice a day, I'm speaking on jail panels, and I think I'm more conscious and more clear, and I can see the path, in front of me that I'm supposed to go, and things work out. Or if I, if I have to overcome it, if something happens difficult in my life, I'm usually okay to handle it and stuff like that. But I mean, it's just a battle. Life is hard. It's just hard.
you know what? It's also challenging to commit to all of those things you talked about, being of service, showing up every day, the meditation.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but I get addicted to the results.
Yeah.
And sometimes like, damn, I mean, of course there's days that we just, I don't want to say fuck everything off, but
Yeah.
some days I don't meditate or some days, and I,
Yeah.
I feel the difference.
Yeah.
But it takes a commitment to live this lifestyle. It really does.
Sometimes I think like, because I'm a recovering drug addict, and listen, I'm not cured of my drug addiction and alcoholism, and so I have to do a lot of things to stay clean and sober, because eventually, if I don't, I'm going to drink or use. If I don't go to meetings, if I don't do service work, if I don't live a honest life, eventually I'll pick up again. But sometimes it feels like I got to do all this stuff. I got to pray. I got to meditate. I got to try to help people, all just to be at zero.
I mean,
Just to start the day without being negative and miserable and depressed and anxiety and all that stuff. I have to meditate. I got to pray. I got to go speak on a jail panel. I got to try to live it. So all these times, sometimes I just have to do these things just to start the day okay.
but you're more than okay. And I'm a codependent,
Mm,
to a recovering alcoholic.
mm,
And you can be sober and not be an alcoholic or a drug addict or recovery and live a miserable life.
yeah, yeah,
And so I'm learning, from my experience with my partner, that it's not about just stopping the addiction, the drugs or the alcohol. It's about
right,
living life, because you could be sober and still live a shitty ass fucking life.
yeah. You're right. You
So
take away. You have a horse thief, and he stops stealing horses, and but you still have a thief. Or I forget how that saying goes, but I'm a recovering drug addict. If I take away the drugs and I don't change my behavior, I may be suicidal. Like if I don't work a recovery program and pray and meditate and do service work, there's no way. Either one of two things are happen. I'll pick up again, or I just can't. I can't stand another second the way that I feel in my mind and my body. So, I go to recovery meetings all the time. I speak in jail panels. I do all these things just to be okay. And if I stop doing these things, I'm probably going to drink or use again. Because I'm going to become so uncomfortable. It's called dry. But you're right. I want to say.
and I appreciate you being so real and vulnerable and authentic. It's not, addiction is, I was in denial for years. It's not, easy to witness or have someone in your life like that. And so when I,
Hmm.
hear these stories that it's possible to overcome it, and I can't imagine, what it's like, but just to know that there's life at the other side of it, it's like it gives hope.
Yeah. Yeah, but and we don't have the cornerstone on depression and miserable. A lot of
No.
people without addiction have it too. But on the flip side, that's the two difficult parts about it. But the other part is on the positive side is I'm the best version of myself I am today.
Mm.
I live I believe in God and higher power, whatever. I live this incredible life, and all these things are happening. I get to tour the country with guys from
Right.
SNL. I'm producing these shows, with SNL, with the more SNL guys, and it's It's incredible.
Yes.
I did a show. So I'm producing. So that's my impression show, was the one show I was telling you about. So after I produced that one, so we started touring it, but I produced it at the Improv, right? So I met with the Improv. I said, hey, I have this show, this impression show. Anyway, long story short, I produced it, meaning I did all the marketing and advertising and flyers and booked it and all that stuff. So I produced that impression show. So Darrell Hammond and I are out to lunch, and I said, well, because I did the impression show, I want to talk to the Improv about doing a regular show, just stand up. And there's two rooms. There's a big room and a small room. And I said, yeah, maybe she'll give me the small room. Darrell Hammond says to me, the small room? It's called the lab. You went lab? What are you talking about, dude? You're producing in the main room.
Yes, go for the big room, bro.
He's like, why are you gonna go? He's like,
yes.
He's like, come on, dude. And he's like, you know what we do? He goes, why don't you produce an SNL alumni show?
Oh,
I'm
nice.
like, really? And he's like, yeah. He goes, let's get all SNL alumni guys, and we'll do an SNL alumni show. And I'm like, yeah. So I go meet with the Improv, and I said, hey, I want to do an SNL alumni show. Now the Improv is probably one of the two most famous clubs in the country. It's the Improv and the Comedy Store, and it's a huge deal. And so the booker's like, yes, let's do it. She goes, I've been talking about doing an SNL alumni show forever. I was just going to do it myself, but you can do it. So I did my first show, and I got Chris Kattan, Jay Farrow, who's brilliant, Darrell Hammond, and Jay Mohr. Sold out, huge success. And I was the producer and the host. So I host, I do 10 minutes, and then these guys all performed, and it was incredible, right? So then I tried to do another one. I couldn't get enough SNL people, so I had to flip into the Impressions. And then I thought my career was over. No more SNL Legends. She was called SNL Legends. So it's all over. And I, all that negative thinking. And then my friend Jay Mohr, I was trying to get these guys, David Spade and Dana Carvey. They're huge, right? And they both do stand up. And I talked to them both at the club, and they're like, oh yeah, call me and my assistant. They both turned me down. So Jay ends up going on their podcast, and he sends me a text about 2-3 weeks ago, and he's like, hey, I just did Dana Carvey's and Spade's podcast. They're in on the show.
That's amazing.
I'm like, what? I'm like, oh my God. And he's like, yeah, David. And he goes, get some dates, right? So I get some dates. I send it to Jay Mohr. 15 minutes later, he texts me back, Spade's in for October 30th.
That's awesome. I'm so happy for you. And I love, again, amazing, incredible stories.
Yeah. And you know what? It could fail. Who knows?
But you know what? There's really no failure. We learn, And
yeah, but the point is, I got all this because of sobriety, or because I'm living a spiritual life,
Amen. And again, so I'm going to ask you a question before we wrap up. And how do I want to word it? Did you ever imagine you'd be where you are today?
I didn't. I always thought I'd be an actor. I always had, since I was young, I always thought I'd be an actor. My first dream was to become a professional baseball player. Then was an actor, and I'm actually going to do a role. I don't know if you know Matt Pinfield.
I don't.
Matt Pinfield was a DJ on MTV, and really famous DJ. His name's on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's a good friend of mine. But his daughter, I'm going to play a character based on Matt Pinfield. It's like a 20-minute short, and so I'm going to play that, which is really cool. So that's coming up, and then. But I never even thought I'd be a stand-up, and then now all of a sudden I'm doing stand-up and.
Producing SNL Legends.
I'm producing SNL Legends. It's crazy. It's so cool, but it's let me say also, it's very uncomfortable. There's so much anxiety and pressure, and is it going to fail? It's not going to happen. I put so much pressure on myself, but I got to remember, it's just a stand-up show. It's just a comedy show. But I produced that SNL Legends show, and here's one of the coolest things that's happened in my stand-up career is. This girl came up to me. I was at a recovery meeting. She came to the show, the SNL Legends show. And the next day she came up to me and she goes, Greg, she goes, I have to tell you this. She goes, I went through something that was devastating. And she goes, I was so crushed. She goes, I did not smile for 3 months. It was the most devastating thing I've ever gone through in my life. And she goes, I went to your show. She goes, I laughed for the first time. And she goes, I laughed so hard my stomach hurt.
I love it.
And she goes, Greg, she goes, thank you so much. You know, she goes, my stomach still, she goes, my stomach is still hurting from laughing so hard last night. And thank you. And I was like, oh my God, like I can make a difference. I can bring laughter and joy and be a part of, you know, bringing happiness and joy to people that are going through difficult times. And that was like the coolest thing in the world. So if I just remember that and I live in that and I remember it's not about me. It's not about me. It's about what I can do for other people.
I love it. And you're so inspiring. I think about you all the time. And I love these risks that you're taking. And I rather take a risk and fail than not take that risk at all. And I rather have these big, ridiculous dreams where people make fun of me because then, you know, if I don't get here, maybe I'll get here. And so you inspire me to just keep pushing, you know, each day. I remember your story. So I know you're busy and you spent so much time with us and just great nuggets of wisdom. If there's one last thing you can leave our audience with, what would that be?
Just help somebody.
I think that's beautiful. Yes. Be of service, community.
Yeah.
Thank you, all of you, for joining us today on this really incredible episode of Real Talk, where I appreciate Greg getting real and vulnerable with us. I love you and I appreciate you. And for those of you that are watching, Greg, do you want to kind of let us? Well, actually, I could probably put your tour dates in the chat. So,
so if you can follow me at Real Greg Baldwin. At Real Greg Baldwin, and I'll be touring. I'm going to Colorado November 11th. I'll be in Michigan December 1st. I got a ton of shows in LA, and I'll be in Bakersfield on Saturday.
Bakersfield. That reminds me of Johnny Cash for some reason.
And you know, you can follow. You can just send me a message on Real Greg Baldwin. You'll see me, or follow me on Instagram, and you'll see all my shows. And it's been such a pleasure. I love you, Grace. I'm so happy.
And we'll definitely put all of your information there for people to find you and come out to see you wherever they might be across the country. I appreciate you. And thank you everyone for watching. So definitely share if you enjoyed this episode, because you never know who might need to hear the nuggets of wisdom. And that also allows us to continue to bring great guests on our show. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all. Have a great evening and hang on with me, Greg. Till next time, all. God bless. Bye.
God bless. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.